Miss Andrews, are you okay?
Definitely not. I'm actress Valerie Allen, and I play Amy Andrews in the new film, The Empty Space.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
A violent attack leaves her without her boyfriend, her home, her sense of self. Amy, like so many of us, suffers from mental illness. As she tries to get her life back together, she's haunted by terrifying visions that may or may not be real. Empty Space goes beyond the slasher and takes you deep into the void. We hope you join us as our film premieres on streaming. We also hope that not only are you frightened, but you gain some insight into a serious problem that affects so many people, including the filmmakers.
I know how it sounds. What if it's real?
The Empty Space, a terrifying new vision from director Andrew Hara.
What's up, guys? It's Andrew Hanna, and it's a special late night edition because it's Halloween. And you know, on Halloween, welcome to the Bomb Squad, of course, watch The Empty Space. What if we just covered The Empty Space 4 times? And I was just like, until you guys watch it, that's it. But no, we have a special theme, and we also have a special guest. We have with us Leslie Gonzalez. Hey, Leslie.
Hello.
So me and Leslie have worked together on a short. She was my DP, which should be coming out soon. It's in post sound right now. It looks pretty cool. But Leslie's also a photographer. Leslie, can you tell us how you got into photography and film?
Yeah,
Were they one and the same?
I've been doing photography since my sophomore year of high school. And then I think a year after that, I sort of discovered video and kind of wanted to transition into that. So that's kind of where I've been in my journey lately, actually, as I'm getting more into cinematography than actual photography. But also a lot of like concert photography too, as of late. But I'll shoot anything and like everything, to be honest.
Which explains why she works with me. Do you find them? Because I always I don't know, I feel like it's a different tool in your brain when you're taking photography and when you're doing cinematography, even though it's very similar. Do you feel the same way?
I kind of do. I definitely do think that like my background in like practical art has transferred over to both of those areas, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of overlap between it all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that this isn't too much, but if it is, I'll just have to edit it. But you are also interested in journalism, right?
I am, yeah. So I think, well, I always say that I double major too, to just have that sort of safety net. But I wouldn't mind going into like photojournalism or doing some sort of like documentary work. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. And what interests you about photojournalism?
I think more so the social importance of it, I guess. I think it's something that you don't really get from, sort of the short films or features that we always do. It just feels different, I guess.
So when you meet someone like, say, a director out of Las Cruces who manages to mix both the hard-hitting realities of mental illness with space aliens, are you just like, whoa, I'm a part of American cinema right now?
Honestly, yeah, I think we're in the golden age. I think The Empty Space is the peak.
It's begun the new age. But no, I think it's interesting. And I don't know if everyone knows, I don't really talk about it, but I did work in the news. And so I'm always intrigued because it's kind of that thing where it's very similar, but it's a completely different muscle. And so anyone who's interested in kind of telling that side of the story, it would make sense because you're into photography, and photography is about capturing moments, which is kind of what journalism is. Film is like creating moments, but everything's about moments.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So Josh, our other guest, Josh, when did you start following kids down to the ditch and then killing them and then returning 28 years later to kill them again?
Wait, am I?
It's because you look
one
like
of
a
the
murderer
demons who
all the
keeps
time.
coming back.
Yeah. Of course.
Special
Josh,
Halloween
Josh,
edition.
Josh is dressed like the janitor who kills people in their dreams after the parents set him on fire. This is beforehand. But yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I think it's cool, and I'm glad that hopefully this month, but depending, like, one of the things that I'll break it down a little bit more. Me and Leslie worked on a short. She was a DP, and originally it was supposed to be one of those little shorts that I release randomly. Like we just did Desert Sniper, which wasn't a little short, but it was like older, so I was like, who cares? But this one, it ended up coming out so good that we're like, originally we were going to use copyrighted music, but then I was like, no, it's too good. Like, let's make it for like legit. And so now it's in post sound. It's coming out pretty well. Like, I'm very excited for people to see it. I don't know. I'm hoping that it'll be done by October. I mean, it's going to be done by this month, but it's so good that I kind of want to put it into a festival or two. So you'll see it sooner rather than later. Leslie, how did you? That was your first DP?
It was, yeah. I think everyone could tell.
But I think, like, I don't know, when you look at the footage, I don't think people can tell as much. I
That's
think
true.
people see it, and like it came out exactly how we wanted it. It looks super cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's, and maybe Leslie can shed some light on this, but it's kind of like a Tim and Eric style cinematography, and
Hmm.
so it's supposed to look kind of like low grade, but there's a way to do that so that it looks creative, and there's a way to do that so it looks like we don't know what we're doing. And
Right.
this was very much done in that way so that it looks creative. It looks like that's the point. But did you find that like kind of extra challenging because you have to go against your natural, let's make it look super cool aspect?
It was sort of a fun challenge. I think you're right. We kind of did hit the nail on like the intentionality of it all. It came out the way that we wanted it to, with those tilted shots and the sort of like found footage kind of look. I think we achieved what we were going for sure. Um, yeah.
Cool. And when if this doesn't get out in October, then when you watch the short, come back. I don't know why I'm saying this now because there's no way you'd be able to tell, but come back. Remind yourself to come back, and this way you can listen to some more insight on the short. Bethany's also in that short. Who we talked to. Eli worked on the short. Mauda is not on
Wait,
yet, but she
what's
will
the
be.
short called so they know to search for it when they're watching this episode?
Thank you, Josh. I totally have a title. That's why I hadn't mentioned it yet.
Okay.
Um,
So you're
I'm
just
so
you're
glad.
just
I'm
vaguely
so glad you brought.
saying, go look at my other shorts, read the credits of the shorts, and come back and find this.
It's on. It's
That's
on my YouTube. Like my short isn't gonna be in a random place unless it might be on Tubi, just like my other movies. Go check it out and find out. So it's gonna be on my YouTube page. Go there and look for the last
There's already
short.
like 7 or 8 shorts on there,
We'll
so
watch
it's
them
like,
all, buddy. This is homework.
yeah, I guess
Okay.
that's true. Because they're all
When
horror, they're all kind
yeah,
of within the theme. So
yeah,
go
let's watch
check
them
them
all.
out.
If you guys aren't having an Andrew Hada marathon right now, I don't know what you're doing. But yes, so back to the point. I think it's going to be called the Clown Show, but it's about clowns. If you see clowns, that's the one. Um, I think, but there's 2 clown ones. I'm so derivative.
I was about to say, what if you do more than one clown one? I didn't realize you already had 2 in the
You're
chamber.
not gonna see that other clown one for quite a while, guys. Okay, enough of this from our 25 subscribers. So normally when we have our first guest, of course you guys know this, we let them pick. But one of the things is William has been gone, and we were hoping to kind of cover stuff until he came back. He was supposed to come in October, but he fell behind a little bit. So we have a monthly theme, but we will bring Leslie back to talk about her movie. It's Pieces of April, right?
It is all
Yeah.
time
So
favorite.
and I'm
Nice.
I'm saying it on the pod so that I'm being held accountable for so I don't forget. But yeah, November, you'll see Pieces of April. We'll talk about it again. But for now, we have a theme. It's Halloween. You watched all of our Texas Chainsaw reviews. You did not watch all of our Hellraiser reviews and made us stop. But now we have another theme because I'll never stop doing themes. And our theme this month is The Exorcist. There's a new Exorcist movie coming out. There's 4 Exorcist movies. There's like 5 of them, but we're going to cover 2 today. And so we really wanted to like go over them. One of the interesting things is like The Exorcist, for being like a not that well-known franchise. Like I don't think people even know there's more than one Exorcist. Each one is very individualized. Like it has its own story. For example, the one that because we're going to talk about a little bit about The Exorcist, but obviously the point of our podcast is not to discuss the biggest horror movie of all time. So we're going to really cover Exorcist 2, which is like known as one of the worst movies of all time. And then we're going to cover Exorcist 2, 3, which is like a return to form to some. And then the Exorcist prequels, which they made one prequel and then they completely shot it with Paul Schrader, who did Taxi Driver. And then the studio was like, what the hell is this? So they made them reshoot it with a different director and like 90% new cast, but they kept some people. And then they just released that one in theaters and that one bombed. And so then they released the other one because they're like, screw it. And so that's why we're covering these movies. They're all weird. But today we're covering Exorcist 2, The Heretic. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about 1973's The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, the late great William Friedkin, written by William Peter Blatty, who's still alive and he's still making Exorcist movies. And it stars Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, who you're gonna be like, "There's no way he could come back for the sequel." And guess what? Linda Blair, and then I think that's it. Oh, and it stars Carl, the fucking Swiss chef that everyone treats like shit for no reason whatsoever. I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
every time they cut to Carl, someone's fucking yelling at Carl. I was like, what did he do? He didn't do shit. But before we start, what did you guys think of? Oh, Josh, tell us what The Exorcist is about.
Oh man!
But only from the perspective of Iraqi workers on an archaeological dig.
As far as they know, they dug up a thing and a guy took it, and they're like, "That was a day.
A good job. Yeah, we did great."
Yeah, no, it's an ancient evil is possesses a young girl, and then a conflicted priest has to perform an exorcist on her. Hence the title, The Exorcist.
And he gets help from a separate exorcist.
Yeah, but I mean, it's clearly his like ideological struggle, you know.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So, Leslie, we'll let you start. What did you think of? Is this the first time you had ever seen it?
It is. It's the first time ever for both of them. Yeah,
Crazy.
and I watched the first one first, obviously.
It'd be so weird to do it in reverse, but yeah.
It might have been better that way.
Yeah, because then you're like, oh, I ended on a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think of The Exorcist?
No, I think it's sort of like a 3-star movie for me. It's definitely better received on the second one, though. I mean, I was entertained the whole time, but I was also thinking the whole time, like, this is not something that would scare me. Maybe something that would scare, like, my little sister or my grandma, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was okay.
See, like, to me, I do get that because rewatching it, you know, I'm not, like, scared by it. Well, one, I'm not Catholic, and I know that's a huge part of it. But two, it's also so iconic that you've seen versions and parodies and like slight tweaks on it for the past like 50 years. So it's like, oh, I've seen like 70 versions of this by the time I've seen this movie. So it's kind of tricky to like have the mindset of the people who saw it for the first time, you know?
Of course, yeah. And I did watch the director's cut too. I don't know if there are any like huge differences.
That whole part in Iraq is not in the original cut. It doesn't start there. Yeah, it's such a weird addition.
There's no like.
I think there's a little bit in Iraq because I watched the non-directors and there's like small.
The problem is there's like 25 directors.
Oh, okay, maybe because I know like her crawling like a spider on the wall or whatever is not in the version I saw, and that's the big director's cut. I don't know.
It's like one of the best scenes.
There's like little things in there that happen. But yeah, I don't think it really changes, but I do agree that like this movie is fucking super Catholic, even to the point, and it comes up in the sequel, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I think it's that kind of thing where you look at it. To me, it's intriguing. How they shot it, because this is kind of before all the horror tropes start, you know, and so they don't use any horror tropes. It's a lot of like the movie shot like an actual movie. It's not shot like a horror film. So you could tell that the director and the writer were like really looking at what's the best way to do this scene, where now, like, as horror has progressed, it's like, what's the best way to scare the audience, where this one, it's not trying to scare you, it's just kind of scary, you know. And I
See,
think that that's, yeah, go
no, I
ahead.
agree. It's just like it's almost clinical, but I feel like that like kind of enhances because it's like
Hmm.
so steadily like they're like trying to like treat her like first it's a doctor trying to treat her and then it's a priest, but they're still treating her like clinically. And I almost
Yeah.
feel like that like kind of like helps ground it in a way that like the like crazy screaming jump scare stuff doesn't really like doesn't feel real in the same way. Like
Right.
this movie almost feels like real. I don't know. You know what I
It,
mean?
no, I agree. It does kind of feel real in the way that, like, the mom, played by Ellen Burstyn, she treats it as if anyone would treat it. Like, she hears stuff in the attic, she thinks it's mice, you know. Then she starts to like maybe see things, but she doesn't know. And then, like, her daughter's doing stuff that they keep telling her is mental, but it doesn't feel right, you know. And so she's like getting more desperate, but like she doesn't want to jump to make that leap. And I think, like, you know, if there was a ghost right now, I think I would. It would take me like 2 weeks to acknowledge that it was a ghost, you know, because I'd be like, oh, I put my water down. I thought I put it over there, you know, like I would never be like, oh, it's definitely a ghost.
Yeah. The we know what I forgot watching this again because the second movie makes a very big deal about naming the demon,
Yeah,
and in fact, it's kind of its origin story. A lot of problems there, but
yeah. It's cool to talk about the second movie when you know we're going to talk about it.
but
In about 5 minutes.
in this one, you know is she calls him like Captain Howdy at the beginning. She's like, "Oh,
Right.
my friend Captain Howdy," and so I mentally called him that in my head the whole time, and I think that's a lot better, you know,
Yeah.
than the name we end up with.
You
It's
wouldn't think that Captain Howdy would be a scarier name than the one they came up with, but we'll talk about it when we get to part two. I also think, like, and see, I don't want to talk about it yet. We'll talk about it in a second. What did you think of, since Leslie is a cinematographer? What did you think of the cinematography and like kind of the way they shot it?
Um, I honestly wasn't too focused on the cinematography just because I was trying to follow the storyline so
Right.
much, I think. You know, and I was really trying to like find a theme in all of it too, which I think it could have hit harder there. You know, especially when they have like that contrast of like social classes or like
Right.
and between the priest and like the mom who's this like big star like actress kind of person. And I don't know, I
Mhm.
feel like it sort of fell short of a theme for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wonder if it had like, because there is like the mom is an actress in the movie, and
Mhm.
you know, it keeps like this movie spends a long time establishing, which I like about it, but you really get to know the ins and outs. And so you spend a lot of time with the son, and his mom is like, the son is a priest, but he's also a psychiatrist, and they sent him to school. And his mom is like, she's on her deathbed, but they're like, they can't afford a real hospital, which I thought was interesting. Like, there's that point where he meets up with his uncle, and the uncle tells him like, oh, if you hadn't become a priest, she wouldn't have to live like this, you know.
Mhm.
And it's like that, I don't know, to me that's like one of the most depressing lines in the whole movie. It's like everything has been caught up to his faith, and I don't know, like at the end he obviously like understands that saving Reagan is like the most important thing because she's like an innocent child, you know. But I don't think they ever reconcile with his crisis of faith, because like just stopping the devil is one thing, but does that necessarily grant you God, like a love for God? You know what I'm saying? So it does kind of feel a little bit
yeah,
janky at
it's
the
a
end. Yeah.
little I don't know, but to me too, it's almost very like it's almost like oh, it doesn't matter, I still have to act. So it's like and only as
Right.
a priest can I do this.
Hmm.
I don't know, and that's well, and like her being rich is almost, and I kind of, I saw it as like, oh, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, like this problem
Right.
is
It's gonna
like,
touch
Right.
it
you.
doesn't matter, like yeah, like no matter how much money you throw at it, this is just going to like be something beyond.
Yeah.
I almost like that aspect too of, um, usually in a movie like this, it'd be like, oh, the last tenant did devil. It's like, oh no, none of that had like this was just they opened it in Iraq and you're fucked. So like it's like you
Yeah.
could have never seen this coming. It just picked you on the other side of the world, you know. So it's like bad
Yeah.
luck. I don't know. It's
Right.
very
Right.
interesting. It's just like random chance, and then like the fallout of that. It's very
Yeah,
interesting
and
to
I
me.
think it's cool like how much we get to. I think Linda Blair, like she was nominated for an Oscar, and she 100% should have been nominated for that Oscar. Like she manages to play like the annoyance of a kid, but you still don't want bad things to happen to her. Like she feels very like a kid, you know. And so as things start to get worse for her, like I think there's that part where she tells her mom, like, "Oh, am I ever gonna get better? Like, what's wrong with me?" And you really do feel like bad for this kid. Um, and so yeah, I think everyone does a good job. I think my favorite scene in the movie is there's a scene where they're having like a party, and then Reagan comes downstairs. She's supposed to be asleep, and she's just kind of standing there, and they all look at her, and then she tells like there's an astronaut, which maybe we'll cover the ninth configuration as well. We won't. That movie's Anyway, she tells the astronaut, she's like, "You're gonna die up there," and then she just pisses on the carpet, you know. And then it immediately cuts to like the mom kind of putting her to bed, and like she comes down, and the maid is like scrubbing the rug, and the mom's like, "Oh, is it gonna come out?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's gonna come out," you know. But I think it's like to me that kind of sums up why I think this movie works. It's because they don't ever like until the very end they don't ever treat it like a demon possession. They're kind of looking at it the way we have to look at our medical problems since we don't have free healthcare, where it's like you have to hope that like fixing this problem, fixing that problem is going to like fix everything. And I think like that just kind of shows how lost they are in this movie. I don't know. That scene is just really good to me.
Yeah, I get it. It's also you know it's interesting. They kind of like recruit Karis while he's out like jogging. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
"We need you. You're the best." It's like that's almost like like that's like become a modern action movie trope, and it's like a totally different genre, but it's like you can almost see its roots in that
Yeah.
scene. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just it's weird that this movie did so many like firsts that like it almost
Hmm.
transcends itself in that way. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
they
very
even
weird.
bring in like he's the elder priest who knows a little bit too much, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really like, and it's kind of like I felt like this when I was watching Rosemary's Baby, where it's like, oh, I've seen this movie spliced into 100 other movies, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so that was good. Go watch The Exorcist. We just wanted to give you some backstory and how we felt about it, so we can jump into The Exorcist 2. Guess what, Josh? Tell us what this movie's about and
Oh
try to
man.
keep it to one
Can
sentence.
a can the movie tell me what it's about, and then I'll have an answer for you? Because if you're talking about you don't know what the theme is, I don't even think they. This is like
Oh, hold on. So The Exorcist 2 was released in 1977, the same year as Star Wars and Rocky. It was directed by John Borman. It was written by William Goodhart, and it was stars Richard Burton. Linda Blair comes back. Louise Fletcher also comes back for some reason. Oh no, Louise Fletcher is the doctor. Kitten Wynn, who plays Sharon in the original, also comes back and looks completely different. And it also has James Earl Jones. You're gonna be like, what is he
yeah.
in this
Yeah, this
movie?
cast is stacked
If you're
actually.
like, hey, there's no way Ned Beatty's gonna show up in an Exorcist movie, do I have fucking news for you? So yeah, Father Merrin even comes back. So this movie,
You know, it's funny you mentioned Star Wars because this felt a lot like the last Star Wars movie to me. You know, where you're like, oh, is this like 8 scripts mashed together that they just never like edited?
well, and I just want to
That's
say, like this movie. So this movie starts, and what it's about is that the Catholic priests are like, even we don't believe that an exorcist took place. So go and re-traumatize that little girl and tell us if she was really possessed by the devil or if it was just in her mind. And
And
so the
it's like
father's like, yeah,
years after the fact too.
yeah,
it's yes. Well, and like she's like living at this like special psychiatric hospital, and her doctor kind of looks like her mom, and apparently originally was cast as the mom because the
yeah.
mom like they couldn't get the mom back, but then they just changed the script. They're like, I guess you're her doctor now. We're never gonna mention the mom again, you
Yeah, they
know,
don't ever mention the mom
or
at all.
Karis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Karis, yeah, they barely mentioned. So, Leslie, what did you think of this film?
Okay, so a little bit of what we just sort of talked about is the whole setup kind of got to me too because well like yeah first it's like they send out Father Lamont or whatever. It's like 4 years after everything has taken place in the first Exorcist to investigate that exorcism, which was just really like off-putting to me because I'm like, why are they gonna stir up stuff now?
Right.
Didn't make sense. And then also, yeah, the person who played the psychiatrist did like really like similarly resemble the mom. So I was a little bit confused about that. And then I got that she was a psychiatrist and I was like, okay. Still weird that the parents aren't in the film at all. Like it's just sort of like a weird dynamic between the characters, you know. And
Especially like, yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
go.
You're good.
To me, one of the weirdest things is like, and I was saying this, I wanted to say this earlier, but like
Mhm.
the original Exorcist, like as a Catholic, that movie is fucking Catholic as balls, you know?
Mhm.
And like, not only is that, but like the two major things in that movie is this like trying to find your religion in like this cold world. And the other thing is like how a mother will do anything to protect her children.
Right.
And in this movie, all the Catholicism is cut out and all of the mother is completely cut out. And there's just like a
Exactly.
random train.
Yeah, it's you
And
know what?
so
Oh, go ahead.
and then like Linda Blair, like in the original, she's not doing as much because she's possessed or she's playing the
Mhm.
demon, you know. And she's also like they also like kind of push her to the side for most of this movie. It's so weird that we're now following two new characters that we have no relation to, but also that have a huge relation to our original characters. It would
Mhm.
be like to use the Star Wars thing if in that movie we were following like one of the random rebels and Luke Skywalker would just kind of have a scene every once in a while. You'd be like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it really goes all in on like I don't know. It's because yeah, like you said, the first is very Catholic and it's very like oh the faith and the kind of the big build up to them even deciding to do an exorcism is like medical science fails because it's like okay, modern science will tell us what's wrong with this girl. Oh no, and like everything they're trying just doesn't work. And in this, they like, and this is like a focal point of the movie. They hook her up to this like new age hypnosis machine a
Yeah.
lot, like a lot. They and not only does it work, it works immediately, and it's almost like the crux of the film is that putting her into this magic hypnosis machine possesses everyone. Like everyone's kind of possessed.
Yeah.
Like not just Reagan, but like the priest, the doctor, her random caretaker. It's there.
And
There's
and
a
here's
scene where they're like literally the good Reagan and evil Reagan are fighting over the doctor's heart by
yeah.
grabbing at her heart with their hands. It's so bad.
Well, and see, here's the
It's
other thing. Like,
baffling.
I could almost understand it if the point was like, oh, because there's a scene where Reagan, as a demon, says, "She's always gonna be mine. Like, she never stopped being mine, even if I." And so, like, if the point of the movie was that like Reagan was not actually cured, like she was still possessed, it had just manifested differently, and so it was like infecting everyone around her. That'd be kind of cool, and it's kind of what happens. But another million things kind of happen in this movie.
Mhm.
And like one of the things is like Reagan is like at the beginning, Reagan seems normal. She doesn't have any outbursts. She's not having trouble sleeping. They even tell her like, oh, she seems to be cured. And at the end of the last one, she did also seem to be cured. And so like I'm not a psychiatrist, but usually if a patient has no problems, you don't try to re-traumatize them so that they remember the trauma. You kind of like, oh, we fucking lucked out on this one, you know?
It's also like the father, like Lamont or whatever. It the cold open of the movie is actually very like kind of current horror movie where it has a cold open of a different like possession that he's trying to do an exorcism on like doesn't work. But then it's like, okay, so he knows exorcisms are real. Why is he like participate? Like, why is he playing with fire
Right.
like this? You know,
Yeah.
like it's I don't know. There's like a very long subplot in the middle where he goes to the Middle East to find James Earl Jones because he's like an all-knowing leopard man.
He's not in the Middle East.
Or
Isn't he in Africa?
Yes, he's in Africa.
oh yeah, you're right. I'm just thinking of Iraq
Like
from the first
I
one.
couldn't even like those are so different in location.
Because in my mind, I was like, oh, of course he's going to go back to Iraq. Because I forgot
Right.
that this movie just throws all that out. So
It does not care about Iraq at all.
I would say that, like, say the first half hour two of the movie is like, it's literally just them hooked up to the synchronizer and it's all locked in that location. And then, like, immediately after that, we're going to like all sorts of places like Africa and wherever,
Yeah.
like you said. It's very
I
weird.
will I will say so at the beginning it starts and like the father is like trying to do his exorcism and it doesn't work and the girl ends up like catching on fire and she's like, I'm the devil, and she's like a Mexican lady. She has her hand stretched out and she's all on fire and it's like 1977 effects. So her head is like clearly like they are superimposing fire on her, but they didn't put any on her face so you could still see it. And it looks super cool, super stylized. I don't think it's the look they were going for, but I
yeah,
really enjoyed it. Like, good job, guys. And also, she's wearing, for some reason, she's wearing what my grandma wears because she's like, a very traditional, like, Mexican muumuu. And I'm like, all right. I mean, we do wear those. And then, yeah. And then, like, again, yeah, the whole first half of it. And then they bring back, like, Father Marin, like Max Van Stryden, for no reason. Like, they keep cutting to, like, the day of the exorcism in what is clearly not Linda Blair because she didn't want to do the makeup. And so it's just a random person who also, for some reason, they hired someone else, but they hired someone who kind of looks like Linda Blair at the time, I guess to trick us into thinking it was Linda Blair. So instead of Reagan looking like a child like she did in the first one, she looks like an adult copy of the girl.
yeah. It's like the weird age. Like whenever you're doing a prequel scene, they also, I know maybe they just couldn't get the woman who did the voice in the first one, the like super heavy smoker voice when she's
Yeah.
possessed. The demon voice in this is so bad. Like it's I don't know. It's like you know, like when they kept doing Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and the Freddy mask just kept getting more and
Yeah,
more
get
like Spirit
laser.
Halloween.
Yeah.
It's like they did that. It was immediately like the hard cut to like that. It's a very strange movie. All the
Yeah.
choices are strange.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
I
And it's
suspect
not scary. Like I know that
yeah.
I'm one who gets annoyed if people say this movie's not scary because like not all horror movies are scary. Some of them are about zombies and they go on for an hour and 18 minutes and they're on Tubi. You should watch them. But some movies like this movie is not only not scary, it's not even trying to be scary. Like there's no scares in this movie whatsoever.
What if
I
you're scared of locusts? Then it's
Well,
probably really scary for you.
there are no scares, but there are two POV locust flying shots if you want that.
It feels more like sci-fi than horror to me in the second one. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I did
Yeah.
enjoy the aerial shots of the demon and the locust from a cinematic or cinematography
Yeah,
point.
I didn't mind like that idea. It's just it's more
It,
like what are they doing with this, and they
well,
don't even
it took me a second to connect the fact that the aerial shots were because what's his name, Pazuzu or whatever, is
Zuzu. Yeah.
something like that. He's like the king of the wind spirits or whatever, and I was like, oh, that's why the aerial shots. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Oh, we can see what they can see," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"What?" Like I thought we were in their minds. Why are we now in a
Yeah,
locust's mind, and why are we flying around?
yeah.
And then also, okay, so there's a scene in the original Exorcist where, like, and it's one of the coolest parts because Father Karras keeps like trying to tell Father Marin like details about the case, and Father Marin like does not give a shit. Like he's like, "Oh, do you want to know the details of the case?" And he's like, "Why?" Like she's possessed by the devil. Who cares who she was before? And then later he says, "Oh, I think she's possessed by three different demons. Here are their names." And then Father Marin goes, "No, it's only one demon. It's just the devil. Like we have to stop them." And so, like again, that's one of the coolest parts because it's like, oh, he's not. He's here to not fuck around. He does die immediately after, but still. Um,
Yeah.
in this movie, they're like, no, it's not the devil. It's just like some dude who's also in hell. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah,
why retcon this for no reason? Like, why can't it still be the
well,
devil?
the fact that they don't even like, and to me at first as the movie's going and everyone's like, well, what did Father Marin know, and we need to like figure out. I kind of thought that was like to show like, oh, the church kind of covered this up and put it all on Father Marin. They almost like wiped Karis from history, and I was like, oh, that's like a smart way to show that like the unsung hero, like who really saved
Mhm.
Reagan, you know. But as the movie progressed, I was like, wait, did they just have like a weird licensing thing where they couldn't like say his name? Like, because they show like a bunch of like, yeah, like retconny stuff of just Father Marin there, and he was the only one. The other guy, the main character of
Well,
the
they
Exorcist
mention
was not
another
involved.
priest died once. At one other point at the
Okay,
very beginning, they say Father Marin and another priest who died. But yeah, I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't really pay attention, but I did just notice that they don't ever say Father Karras' name.
they
Very weird.
they also, we should note that the theme from the first Exorcist is one of the most iconic horror themes of all time. And the theme of this is a woman chanting by screaming, and they play it a lot, and it's unbearable. It opens the movie, it keeps coming up. It's just a lady yelling at you. They
Okay,
never play like the good theme from the first movie.
listen. I know that we can look at this cynically, but imagine if someone's like, "Hey, here's the best movie. Like, here's the most celebrated horror film of all time. We just need you to make a sequel. All you really have to do is kind of copy it." And you're like, "Got it, Chief Locust in Africa?" And he's like, "That's not no, not at all." They're like, "Mind games. I got it. Okay, let's do it." And they're like, "You know."
Can
He
we
seems sure of
also,
himself.
and I do admit at about the midway point I was checked out a little bit, but can either of you explain James Earl Jones's character to me? He's
James Earl Jones is who Father Marin saved the first time because they keep randomly cutting to Father Marin's original exorcism they talk about in the first Exorcist. And so this is him older. And then they also explain that the people that Pazuzu possesses are people who are called natural healers and they can heal you with the power of their mind, but they don't. Like, James Earl Jones doesn't heal anyone.
okay. Okay,
The
he's like,
whole movie.
he, because the other father sees him as like a leopard man with magic
Right.
powers,
Well,
but
he can
then
also turn into a leopard.
yeah, or shoot it out of his mouth. It's very unclear. Um, and he has a locust helmet at one point, which I liked. But then it turns out he's just a doctor. So like, was that
Okay.
stuff all in the father's head?
Listen, I watched this movie completely sober, and I just remembered that he turns into a doctor at the end, and then they have like a long sequence where he explains what he does as a doctor.
That's the part that I kind of.
And it's a magic. It's like a magic. It's
But,
like
but
magic
he
science.
also knows every single thing about Reagan, and like he's all seeing, like he knows
Yeah.
everything. And I was like, so is he like God? But no, I don't think I was supposed to get that from it. I just don't think the movie knew. I don't know. I
Like
like.
the movie had never once looked back and saw what was happening up until that point. They're like, let's just keep going. We got this.
It almost feels like you know the Michael Bay's Transformers movies where if you're trying to think about it, they take place in like 30 different locations, but none
Yeah.
of that matters. Like kind of like that, where you're just like, wait, weren't we just in Africa? Okay, now we're back. Now he's on a plane. Oh, okay. And then at the end, like everyone's trying to get to the original Exorcist house to do something, and
Yeah.
then there's an evil, sexy Reagan, and then the normal Reagan. I didn't like that part at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I did think that the evil sexy Reagan was hilarious because she had like 80s hair or like
And
late
like a
70s
night,
hair. It's
like a
very
nightgown,
poofy.
like
Yeah.
a nice, modest nightgown. You know,
Yeah.
it was weird.
Like if
It's
she was hanging out at a club, she'd be pretty cool, I think.
it was, oh, there's one part where she saves an autistic girl, and she like heals the autistic girl with her mind
Right.
powers, I guess. And the autistic girl straight up talks like Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder, and it is so offensive.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst depiction of an autistic person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's bad.
And it was also that thing where it's like, are you sure you guys want to cover these topics in this? Like,
Yeah.
Leslie, what did you think the theme was for this one?
Oh, that's honestly such a hard question.
That's why I gave it to you.
I don't know that there was one.
I don't even know if there was a plot, because again, like, if they had, it's not even like, it's like Raiders, where it's like, if they hadn't done anything, Reagan would have just had a very fulfilling, happy life.
Mhm.
Nothing, and instead, like, all of her caretakers die. Like, they kill Sharon for some reason. It's just like, I don't know what, and like, it's always kind of hard to have sequels. Like, I think of the Aliens movies, and by like the end of it, it's like, maybe Ripley should just die, because she just has this endless cycle of meeting monsters everywhere she goes, and everyone she meets dies. So it's hard to have a horror theme, like an ongoing theme. But this one, it doesn't even like have things that it seems that interested in. Like, it doesn't seem interested in the psychiatry. It doesn't seem interested in the God part. It's barely an Exorcist, It's
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't, because I honestly expected, just walking into this blind, that it would just kind of be a slight rehash of the first one, where a different priest basically learns the same lesson, like finds his faith
Yeah.
again. But that really doesn't happen. Like, I don't even think he questions his faith. I don't even really know what he feels about life.
Yeah.
It's
And to be clear, we spend 90% of the movie with this character. It's not that we weren't watching the movie. It's that he does not, like, he never says anything that's not related to what's happening in that scene,
Mhm.
he's like a cipher. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
And like, and you kind of think of like, when I watched The Flash, like, it was clear that the director just wanted to make a Batman movie, but he had to make a Flash movie. So there's as much Batman in there as there is Flash. With this one, again, I don't know what he was interested in telling. Like, it doesn't feel like he had another script. He's like, just change it. It just kind of feels like he had to write something, and this was like what he came up with for some reason.
Yeah. That's why I would compare it to the last Star Wars movie, where it's like, I don't even know what you were going for. Like, I
Yeah.
just, this almost felt like, when a studio's about to lose the rights to something, so they just put out what they have.
Yeah.
This kind of felt
Go
like
watch our Hellraiser series right now to see more examples of that.
just anything
and
past Hellraiser 2, really.
It's new for you because nobody watched those. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, so, and then for context, as we wrap this up, Leslie, what
Mhm.
are some movies that you find scary?
Scary.
Perhaps a movie about a cosmic alien telling a heartwarming story about living with anxiety.
Empty space.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, no. But for real.
I would say Suspiro. I would say that one. I
Which
actually
one?
didn't even Suspiro. I didn't
Oh.
even finish it actually.
The most recent one, or the original?
Recent one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Got to the scene where bones started cracking, and I was with a group of people. I ended up walking out the theater with them.
That's like the first 20
Wow.
minutes, isn't it?
There's so much more left of that movie.
That is horrific. That is, yeah.
That is the worst part. I will say that.
That's like the scariest part, but it's
And
a good
I think
movie.
we talked about this in another one where, like, because I've never been stabbed, like, I don't have anything to really relate that to. But I broke my arm, so I know exactly how that feels. So when I see someone's arm getting broken, it's like, oh yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Any other ones?
Maybe Hereditary is a follow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect it. I like Hereditary.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like it too. I liked it better when it was called The Empty Space.
They came out first.
Well, yeah, but who wrote there? Who had anxiety first? Your move, buddy. I had it since I was born with it. But no, yeah, those are two solid movies. We got in a little Twitter spat the other day because I said that I laughed out loud when her head hits that pole. But it's such a shocking moment that it's not.
No, I agree. I think it's a scary movie, but I do think that is partially played for laughs, and I think that I'm vindicated in that because
Yeah.
his follow up, Midsommar, has a ton of like jokey parts, kind of in that same
Yeah.
like a mean joke vein, you know?
Which is like, to me, those are always the funny, like the ones like that shouldn't have happened, you know.
Have you
Yeah.
guys seen that? It's an image that I saw going around on Instagram, and it's Margot Robbie driving the Barbie car, and then the little girl from Hereditary is in the back seat.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
No, but that is amazing. Yeah. Damn. So
Um,
yeah, those are solid choices. So if you didn't like The Exorcist 1 or 2, maybe go see Hereditary or Suspiria. And also go see. Have you seen the original?
No.
Okay, well we're gonna have to watch the original, because that
wait,
movie rocks.
the original what?
Suspiria,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. You know, I haven't seen it either.
and it's like way different. It's like a completely different movie, but it's super cool. But yeah, well, thank you guys. Any last words on The Exorcist 1 or 2, guys?
Watch one, don't watch two. But that's
I will
fine.
say that, like, every once in a while, you hear a movie's like the worst movie ever made, and you're like, these people are over exaggerating.
I will say for the first
Well,
30
first.
minutes, I was like, this is going somewhere. They're like
Yeah,
changing
I
it up,
will
and
say that too.
I was like, no, it's not. It's not going. It doesn't know where it's going.
And
Nobody
it was
does.
like hypnotizing, because the first like 20
Mhm.
minutes I was into it, and then I realized like 40 minutes later that I've just been staring at the screen and like nothing has happened.
It is
So
bad in kind of a fun way, though. It's borderline just bad, though.
yeah,
It is, but yeah, it's almost like that weird where you're like, oh, I'm laughing, but now I'm just bored because he's just doing the hypnosis for the fifth time, and I
yeah,
have to watch it for like 10 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Go check out the first one and then watch the second one. I mean, it's almost a rite of passage, especially if you like horror films. But welcome to October, guys. Welcome to Halloween. Go check out my shorts. They're there too. Everything's horror related. I don't have any other genres in me. And then also watch out for the new one. Leslie will be on that one. Leslie will be coming back to Top Pieces of April, of course. And I'll put her Instagram on the in the link below so that you can check out her photography as well. Um, and yeah, thanks for stopping by. Next week we're covering the Exorcist Part 3, and it better be good because goddamn, it was fucking rough. So we'll see you guys next time on the Bomb Squad.